Boys and girls, weather report for April 4th, 2022. Pretty cool. I'm still alive. Actually, I have risen. I have
You have arisen from your bed of slumber.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, got a kidney tumor removed on Friday, and I find it very, very interesting. I named him George. And we aborted George. Yeah, we aborted George. But it was a really neat, extremely kind of cutting edge procedure that they do at the Mayo Clinic. They have a room, I guess, that's filled with 40 cylinders of argon gas. And it comes out at 134 degrees below 0 centigrade. And they freeze a little snowball out of, wherever the cancer is. And it's supposed to be pretty good procedure. It's called, an ablation, and the recovery time's a lot better, and it's pretty cool. But I started looking into kidney cancers and found this wonderful video here called Killer Kidney Cancers Identified by Studying Their Evolution. And I just thought it was fun to just watch them evolve here as they...
But speed, someone might say. How can they study evolution? Because evolution isn't real.
Yeah, it's not real. Anyway, these things are evolving. So a tumor of the size that I had has a population of about 100 million cells in it. And what I imagine is a herd of 100 million gazelles in some savanna in Africa. And those 100 million gazelles are basically dividing maybe once every couple of days, depending on depending on what kind it is, and they are mutating as they divide, and that's one of the problems with a cancer. Now, 72 years ago, I'm 71, but 72 years ago in April, my kidneys were developing, and I was a 1 to 4 week old embryo 72 years ago. And there were all these growth factors that turned on that develops your kidney system. And then you go through life for 60. Well, a tumor, a genetic defect can happen at any time in your life and not show up until you're 70. It could happen when you're 10 years old. And it's just that there have to be a number of mutations before you actually turn on growth factors. So basically my kidneys started growing again after 71 years, which is called cancer. It's a bad thing, kind of. But when you look at it from the perspective of the species of cancer that you have, like every cancer is its own species. And that's kind of what they're showing here. There's 7 different types that they identified. And now Sal Cordova has gone on and on about how the medical community doesn't care about evolution and they have no use for it. But cancer is exactly that. It's evolution. So you start out with, they figured stage 1 CRISPR. So, because of the size, but I haven't got a tissue type yet. And I don't know if it's, there's a 1 in 5 chance that it's benign and it has no capability of metastasizing. So anyway, so the interesting thing is that all of these, 100 million cells, each one can catch a mutation, and it will either die out, which would be purifying selection, or it can do something different. And one of the different things that they do is that when you have epithelial cells are like in a layer. Christopher's going to correct me. And anyway, so epithelial cells are in a layer and they stick together with things like, well, collagen a little bit has an effect, but cadherin, I think is one of them. I'm going to lose my words. Cadherins and other sticky proteins between your cells and between your cells and an extracellular matrix, which is kind of the stuff we're made of, right? Those things, if something goes wrong, like for instance, collagen, if you mutate one glycine amino acid to something else, it can make you fall apart, basically. Your whole body will not stick together properly. And there are some diseases, and I think scurvy is related to this. So I'm pretty sure I invited you, Andrew. But if I didn't, I should have. Anyway, so it's really interesting. What happens is if you get the mutations that start those cells falling apart, they enter this EMT stage. What is it? Epithelial to mesenchymal transformation. And they can start floating around and getting into your blood, and then they'll lodge in another part of your body, and you'll end up with a kidney growing in your lung, that sort of thing. But I think it's absolutely remarkable that
you said a kidney growing in the lung.
In your lung, yeah. If you have kidney cancer and it metastasizes to your lung, you will have a little kidney tissue growing in your lung.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why they tissue type your cancers. Like my brother-in-law, he got 2 different cancers, and they were very surprised. It was in his lung and his colon at the same time, but they were 2 different tissue types. So he got cancer twice. But normally a person will get cancer in their colon or their lung. It'll end up in their liver, or somewhere else. But it's a piece of lung tissue growing in the liver. So it's a very, very fascinating bit of evolution. And it's happening right in front of our eyes, and it happened so quickly. We all know somebody who, was diagnosed with cancer, and then 9 months later they were dead. And which is, it's a real bane upon us. But then when you think about it from the standpoint of what's happening in life, it's inevitable that this sort of thing happens. This is evolution happening.
Yeah, it's like it's very sad on families and things, but still very fascinating. Process biologically.
Yeah. So I wanted to show this. This is my buddy who I lost last Saturday, and his name is Steve Peterson, and he was a wonderful person, a politician, and did a bunch of really wonderful things. He got diagnosed with brain cancer, glioma, on July 27th of last year, passed away last week at 69 years old. So he was a cool person. I have an article about him. So it was kind of ironic that he was a much better person than me. It kind of pisses me off that he died, and I got this weak ass cancer. You know what I mean?
Know what you mean?
Isn't fair. It isn't fair. I don't know. Anyway,
it's never fair.
Yep. But then let's see. I looked at. Let's see. What else do I got here? Got some other stuff. Oh God! I gotta find the right thing. Shut YouTube off. Shut this off, and turn that on. Oh, that's Peterson. This is my friend Peterson on the right. He was like 15 and I was 17 or something like that, hanging out. Anyway, that was pretty cool. But I got this here. So when kidneys develop, now here's the interesting thing. I started looking into the evolution of kidneys, right? And I got a few more pictures, but one interesting thing is you can see my cursor here. You see that top part where the blue is? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now that's called the pronephros. Nephro, for kidney.
For kidney,
so
yeah.
The pre-nephros. And 72 years ago, when I was less than 4 weeks an embryo, I was a 4-week-old embryo, right? I had those pronephric tissues developing, and they form like a little mini kidney that's very much like a fish kidney. Okay. But then after 4 weeks, the mesonephros starts to develop right here in the middle. Okay. And the mesonephros is a lot more complicated and forms a bunch of different structures. But the pronephros dies. And to the best of our knowledge, they don't ever do anything. They're just like remnants or vestigial. It's almost like ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, except you don't want to go too far down that road. But they think that the pronephros might be necessary in order to create later structures for the mesonephros.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the middle here, the mesonephros develops. Well, that one doesn't form your kidneys either. That one starts to degenerate and turn into your reproductive organs and a bunch of other stuff. And then the metanephros, which is down here, is the one that actually starts to form your kidney. And down here is where your butthole is, right where my cursor is. And initially, the embryo empties both would empty fecal matter and urine through the same hole. But then eventually they form a little layer between them, and you end up with a butt and shit like that. But it's really interesting to watch how this develops. But now the most stunning thing about it is that there's a whole lot of evolution going on back here that's that relates back to some very early types of, let me see here if I got a proper picture. Okay, here's let's see, what do we got here? So we got amphibians, we got amphibian kidneys, which are basically built like that. And they roughly more and more complicated, going from amphibians to reptiles to mammals. And the mammalian kidney, is a lot more elaborate. The amphibian kidney is kind of like this spread out device. And it goes back even further to, let me see here. I think we got a fish back here. Let me see if I got that one. I got to blow that up a little bit. Yeah, this is showing basically the steps. There's the pronephros, mesonephros, and metanephros. I don't know if I said it right before, but this is what reptiles and mammals and stuff have, and these are fish in the middle. So we go through all of these phases when we develop embryologically, which is, I think, screams evolution. I don't know. I'm sure the creationists would think that it doesn't scream evolution, but I think it does. It's pretty stunning, actually. Now, let's see what we got here.
Now, can you get like full-grown kidneys from different species and see how they compare to the developing kidney in humans?
Yes. Yeah, and they kind of follow the same pathways. It's just that as you go down the tree, a lot of things will end up finding a solution that works just fine for the environment they're in. Now, there are three different environments that are really important in kidneys. In salt water, they had to pump out the salt, and keep the water, basically. In fresh water, they had to basically stay hydrated, but pretty much pump out water and get a little bit more salt in there. And on the land, we have to conserve the hell out of water. So that's why mammals and land animals develop these more complicated kidneys, to regulate all of that. And the things that stayed in the ocean were just fine with the old style kidney, like this one on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Pronephros. Well,
yeah.
Fish ended up with the mesonephros. So anyway, and then there's insects, which have an even simpler system, where they've got these little these Malpighian tubules are kind of like the glomeruli, they call it, in our kidneys, which are these coiled tubules that collect stuff from the blood and from the tissue and filter it out. and then delivered into the intestine, and it goes out the back, right? That sort of thing. But insects have a really simple kind of kidney system called the Melpighian tubule. Anyway, you can see evolution in all this. I don't know. I can. Don't you think? That's a pretty good case.
Good case.
Good case. Good case.
I mean, it's not like you're the only one who's noticed it. I mean, the article that you or video that you got that from just, said it too.
I guess what they want us to believe. Hold on a second. I don't know if my voice is going to survive. I hope other people come in. We'll have to put a link out there. But anyway, they want us to believe that God started out, I'm going to make some worms first, and I'm going to use this real simple kidney system. And then I'm going to use the same design, and I'm just going to change a little bit for fish, right? I'm just going to go along and use the same design like as I have over here, but I'm just going to extend it for fish so we can handle more. And I think I'll make some mammals and human beings, which are made after my image. And I'm going to use that same design again, except I'm going to put little caps around them and little, tissues. And I find that kind of like a weird story. I don't quite believe it. So anyway.
Now, I had a question for me. I'll ask it if I think of it later.
Oh my God, I wish you'd ask it now.
Oh, I wish I wasn't having an old man moment.
I'm having that. My voice is probably not going to make it through this entire broadcast, I think.
You want me to put the link out there?
Yeah, throw a link out. And
see if we can get some people in here.
Okay. So then, what else we got going on today? Oh, let's see. I'm going to switch over to this guy, Kurk Durston. Does anybody know who Kurk Durston is?
I had never heard of him until you started talking about him.
Oh, shit. Siri decided it. I said Kurk Durston, and Siri called my son Dustin. No, he's going to call back. Oh, shit. Hang on a second. I got to deal with that problem.
Sure.
Oh, let's see here. Where's YouTube? YouTube. Nope. Want that one. Okay. So this is Kurk Durston. He's got a channel. Now, Kurk Durston is he's a brilliant person. He's a scientist. I think he works in genetics, and he's done a whole bunch of papers. And let's see, he did a lot of really good work like 20 years ago. And then I think he joined one of the creationist institutes, and he went total religious kind of, I don't think he's a creationist. He might be an old earth. I'm not sure, but he does all kinds of videos against evolution and all kinds of videos, trying to school atheists on atheism, that sort of thing. But he's written some papers recently that are suspect, called like measuring the functional sequence complexity of proteins. He did that one with Abel and Travers, who are kind of charlatans. The consequential complexity of history and gratuitous evil is one of the papers he did.
What?
The complexity of history and evil, a functional entropy model for biological sequences. What else he got here?
Evil?
Yeah. Let's see. He's got a bunch of religious articles.
So is he basically like able to see where Satan has touched his dirty hands and caused gratuitous suffering or something?
I don't know. He's got a paper called The Incompatibility of God and Gratuitous Evil, Implications for the Termination of Civilizations. And
that's not a geneticist paper.
But he's done a lot of, like, if you go further back, I think I found some really interesting and good papers by Kurk. But now all I can find on Google Scholar is these religious papers. So much to discuss. Oh, he has a little thing with Swami Das, I think, talks about him. But anyway, so he did this thing. Okay, there's he didn't link the original video, but there's a man, and I think you've seen this before. He hypnotized a woman to have a religious experience, and she was an atheist.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that?
No, I haven't watched much Darren Brown. Did you show it on Weather Report?
Oh, it's Darren Brown. Yeah, okay. I thought we talked about it before. I'm not entirely sure.
We could have.
Anyway,
and we can still talk about it today if people would click the link and hop into the room here.
Or you and I can just hog the show. So
we can have the show either way.
Let me know if this is coming through okay.
But I know Darren Brown has been real good about. I don't quite want to say exposing, but yeah, that's a good enough word in a pinch. Bringing to light religious issues and the sleight of hand and misdirection kinds of things that people do to crowds.
Yep,
can accomplish.
Okay, I'm going to play a little bit and see where this goes.
Religious belief and religious experience comes from us and not from God. And the way he tries to do this is by artificially stimulating a religious experience in an atheist. And so let's watch, and I will pause from time to time and comment.
Tonight, I'm going to investigate what I think could be the biggest placebo of them all. God. I'm going to use experiments to show how religious experience can be explained by psychology, and then I'll put that theory to the test by using that knowledge to give an atheist an experience of a religious conversion.
Hold on for a second. I mean, Daniken's, whatever. You know, that's one of the things I really concluded back in the day when I was deconverting or deconstructing, as I like to call it now, is that everything just seemed more likely to be explained by science, economics, psychology, sociology, what have you, rather than something extra, something supernatural breaking into our world miraculously.
Hence,
and
scientism.
Yeah. and a lot of people have come to that conclusion as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how he thinks he can refute that idea, especially since subjective experiences that people have, even the ones that are induced from outside, which, you know, that's what churches are. They're little subjective experience factories trying to convince people that, you know, God's speaking to you, God's moving among us. When, you know, you group psychology, you can influence a group, and they have, we have preachers in our society that are sort of, you know, have a role in our society that they've been given, but you also have, you know, snake oil salesmen and healing people, you know, preachers and people like that also foment that kind of subjective but and externally created kind of reaction.
Yep.
So basically, pastors are hypnotists.
Yeah. So Andrew, before we move on, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Yes.
Did you have any questions about the kidney stuff, about the development of the kidney and the evolution?
I don't think so.
Have you ever seen that before? Where basically our kidneys start out kind of like fish kidneys, and then that part dies, just dies away, and then we move on to another.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Anyway, that is a pretty stunning argument for evolution, I think. The way kidneys develop. Anyway, okay, we'll go on with the video.
I've seen that video many years ago where the
I
girl
did.
gets hypnotized.
Yep. Yeah, let's see what he says here. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
The problem here, you can probably maybe see it, and that is this. We have a lot of experiences of things in real life, and some of those experiences can be, or the feelings of those experiences can actually be recalled or stimulated in the absence of whatever it was that we had those feelings from in the first place.
Right, imagination.
And so it is true that sometimes, let's say we hear a certain song and it reminds us of the smell of a cedar forest after the rain, and we can literally seem to smell those cedars. But it does not logically follow, therefore, that the smell of cedars is a concept that comes from within and not from cedars that are actually in existence and out there. So it's very important to make that distinction here, that it does not logically follow that if you can stimulate an experience using psychological approaches, that therefore the thing they believe that they're experiencing doesn't actually exist out there at all.
Okay. Are these facts not the only thing?
So that is the gist of the entire video. He says that just because he managed to get her to have this religious experience does not mean that God doesn't exist, which of course he's right. It does not logically follow. But still, this is some evidence that an atheist can have a spiritual or religious experience.
Yeah. And what if you were somehow induced to have the feeling before you even, went on to even have a religious experience? What if you had, what if you had these religious experiences or these things that felt like religious experiences outside of a church or a worship context, and then you had a religious experience? It's not, nobody's saying that you don't get religious feelings or whatever through worship or through singing certain types of songs. What they're saying is subjectively, they're just no different. And if they're no different, then how is it your subjective experience is somehow more valid than mine?
Yep. Yeah. And it's okay. We'll get into that a little more. There's this thing about being able to imagine an experience or remember an experience and then having one. Right. And he's saying that, like, okay, if you smell something like cedar trees, basically the reason that you can imagine smelling a cedar tree is because you've encountered one in the past, right? But now the reason that you can feel like you've touched God is not the same because you haven't really encountered God in the past. If you encounter God at all, it's going to be through one of these imaginary feelings experiences, right? Through a religious experience. So I don't think his comparison, his analogy does not follow. Basically, it doesn't hang in there, because I don't run into gods when I go out to the store, when I go out to Walmart or whatever, or Sam's Club. I don't run into Jesus or God. I had to get that from these guys.
To give certain theologians their due, he's probably there. He's probably just hiding. Yeah. You ever done that? Like you're at the store and you see somebody, but you really don't want to deal with them at the moment. You hide from them.
Right.
That's kind of, just to be on the fair side of the equation. He could be there, but he's hiding.
But the thing is that all the things that we know those things because we have encountered those things throughout our life, right?
Right.
In one way or another. Now, there are a couple different ways that you can encounter things. Like for a smell, the smell of peppermint, there's no way that you could learn that at Bible camp or in grade school. They could not teach you the smell of peppermint. Okay? You believe that?
You're right. That's totally subjective.
Right. Totally subjective. So it's something that you learn. But what you can learn is that every time you smell cedar trees, you're right next to these trees and they're called cedar trees. So we can learn that after the fact. So that's how we explain the experience we're having, right? So when they have a religious experience, when anybody, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Christian, an atheist, as I've had a religious experience, how we explain it has nothing to do with the experience, really, or little to do with the experience. We can make good guesses about what's reasonable and what's rational. That we can do. But you can't use the experience to prove that the thing exists.
Right.
Just the experience. You have to have a little more than the experience. You have to be able to go out there and cut that cedar tree down and crunch it up and say, oh, yeah, every time I do this, I smell a cedar tree. You know, that sort of thing. So anyway, let's see where he goes with this.
Things working against me. Usually in the case of a conversion, Natalie would be searching for some sort of answer to life's problems, but
I don't know if we have to go through that. Let's see. We'll go to the next step.
are these facts not the only things working against me? Usually in the case of a conversion, Natalie would be searching for some sort of answer to life's problems, but she's quite happy with her life, so I won't have that advantage. Neither am I the preacher at a big religious rally, which can easily create a hyper-suggestibility and ensure that large numbers of people convert every night. I want this to be a real...
Yeah, I have to admit quite a degree of reservation about some of the things that go on at large meetings that seem quite clear to me to be a psychological manipulation or a physiological stimulation to feel as if it's the presence of God. Yet, as listening to one.
So, in Kurk's favor, he does admit that these religious gatherings like that kind of like set you up to, you know, have that experience. So, anyway.
Well, yeah, but his kind of gathering is the right one. You know, doesn't have a lot of strength to me because, you know, until he admits that, well, yeah, maybe we do put together some, and we say tricks, or maybe we should say strategies. I would be all in favor of going to a group that's designed to help me feel a sense of well-being and hope and positivity about the world in general, which is what a lot of people try to get out of, you know, religious services and devotion. And you know, there's nothing wrong so much in trying to engineer a situation where people do feel, you know, safe. They feel they're among friends. They can break down the usual defensive barriers that we have with strangers. All that, but those may be good ends in and of themselves. And a small group can do that in certain ways with certain strategies that a larger group can't, and vice versa. A large group can, you know, really set the mood. They can, you know, if you have a really good sound system, you can help induce a sense of worship and well-being. So all I'm saying is that every group at every level is going to do that to a certain degree. And just to say, oh, I am suspicious of big church. Well, even at little church or medium church, that kind of stuff is done.
So have any of you experienced a mosh pit at a rock concert?
I cannot say I've had the pleasure.
Oh, I have many times. And it is a very immersive experience, very spiritual. Anyway, especially when I almost dropped Iggy Pop.
Yeah, that would have been a mistake, I think.
When he was singing,
so you weren't on top?
Huh? No, he was on top. Iggy Pop, when he was singing Passenger, decided to body surf, and I was right in front, and I almost dropped him. Even though he weighs about 72 pounds. What's that?
Were there other people helping you?
Oh, yeah, there were lots of other people. I just passed them off. But anyway, I think that was a concert where I actually lost all my hearing of high frequencies because I was right next to the speaker that was about 20 feet tall. I was like taped to it. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, so that is that kind of an experience, a rock concert or, you know, a big gathering of people or a big meeting where people are pissed off at the, you know, the union or anything like that. We tend to amp each other up, you know, that sort of thing. But he admits to that. Okay. But let's see where he goes with logic. Yeah.
Person who deconverted from Christianity, he was saying he gets those same feelings, for example, at a Coldplay concert. In other words,
he mentions that.
it's very important for us to be able to distinguish between what am I being manipulated to experience and what is actually out there.
Exactly.
And which experiences are real and which are manipulated.
Exactly.
That's an important thing, and let's keep that in mind as we proceed.
To be a real and profound experience for her, and not just something she thinks I've taught.
Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go to the next part with Kurk, I think.
15 minutes to do it. So during my 15-minute conversation with Natalie, I'm going to have her create the feeling of being loved by a perfect father, and then I'm going to associate that feeling with a trigger so I can bring it back whenever I want.
Okay, so I'll try to find that video, because maybe somebody can find a link to that video, and I'll link it, but I don't want to play that whole thing. He gets into how he manipulates her and how he, basically hypnotizes her to have this powerful experience in this church setting, sort of thing. And I'm going to skip ahead here a bit to what Kurk has to say.
A week earlier to this, so he already knows the outcome of that meeting at this show, this TV show that he's doing, and so he can speak with confidence. But he now takes a break to do a little experiment, and let's watch this.
A little bottle of a very powerful peppermint oil. When I open this, it's strong enough that the smell will permeate the room. Obviously, it's going to be fainter for those of you at the back. It'll be fairly faint by the time it reaches all of you. But what I want you to do, as soon as you smell it, is to put your hand up. And the point of this is to see how a scent moves around a room, because it's not quite in the way that you might think it will. So the moment you smell it, it will only be faint. Please put your hand up.
This is fairly interesting.
Do keep your hands
I
up.
got a link for you in the private chat.
Okay.
Anyone else? Good. Excellent. Thank you very much. You can drop your hands now. Thank you very much. Good. So here's a twist. The smell was not, in fact, generated by the peppermint oil. That is not peppermint oil. That's actually just water. There you go, Connor. If you smell that, nothing in there is. That's just water. You smell anything at all?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing at all.
And that will relax you quite nicely. It's in the office. The smell was actually generated by a sound wave. If you transmit a sound wave at 18.98 hertz into a contained space, such as we've done with you guys here, there are sort of hidden speakers, black speakers there. There's one.
Have you ever heard that before? There is some research on this, that basically sound waves can invoke certain smells.
I have not heard that or knowingly experienced it. But.
Yeah, pretty interesting. And let's see what Kurk has to say about that.
Okay, so I want to say something that's very important for us to understand here.
Yes,
at the
it
beginning,
is.
he tells us that if he can stimulate or produce or manipulate a religious experience through purely psychological techniques, he therefore concludes that he demonstrates that religious experience comes from within and not from the divine. Now, what we've just seen here is he has manipulated the crowd, or some of the crowd, into believing they're smelling peppermint when in fact there is no odor of peppermint in the room. I noticed, I paused the video earlier to see what percentage of the audience, and it's not the majority. I would say maybe 25%, if that, believed they were smelling peppermint. The other 3/4 didn't actually smell any peppermint. Now, he claims that the smell was actually generated through some harmonics from some speakers there at a particular frequency. I don't know if that's true or not. Like when I watch these guys and I'm in a show like that,
I checked it out, and there actually is some research on this. So
I don't accept anything that they say, basically. I'm just
okay. So when he's at a show like that, he doesn't accept anything that they say, basically, right?
He'll be skeptical. Yeah, I noticed that. It kind of raised my eyebrow.
But when he's in a church,
they would not dare mislead you.
Oh no.
At a church.
Yep. Let's see, where are we at here? 12. Yeah. Okay.
there for the show, just for the enjoyment. So whether those speakers actually did anything or not, I don't know. But the point is, even if they did, they believed they were smelling peppermint when in fact they were not. Now here is a very important point. In order for him to deceive or manipulate the audience into believing they were smelling peppermint, they would have already had to have experience of the real thing. If they had,
yeah, that's what I was talking about. That's how we know what the smell of peppermint is. But now there is a chance that they would smell something even if they never heard of peppermint when you first encounter the smell of peppermint, you are going to smell something. And even if you don't know what it is. So there's the experience itself. But you see what he just said? He said, they're not really smelling peppermint. Yes, you are. If you think you're smelling peppermint, you most certainly are smelling peppermint. It doesn't necessarily mean there is peppermint in your nose.
Right.
But when you have an experience, you're really having the experience. I mean, it's a real thing.
And you can most definitely feel a sense of hope and joy and peace without there being a God there. You just have to have, at one point in your life, experienced peace and been able to identify it with the word peace. That's all. And
right.
You put all those together, and that's your religious experience. So it's not at all true that having all those experiences together means there's a God that really does exist and really did give you that experience before.
Yeah.
Emotions can save in your memory easier than if you have something to attach it to.
Well, and even through hypnotism and group dynamics and stuff, what if you've never felt hope or joy or whatever before? You can still feel that and have, within we say artificially produced. I don't know, maybe within an intentionally produced environment, we can feel those things for the first time. So what he's talking about here is a collection of emotions that we kind of put together at the same time and call it our religious experience, the things that only God can give us or something. But it's just not true that that's the only time you can get that group, that little collection of emotions together.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to see what other religions and practices of other people, what they have too, without having to be like Christianity or anything.
Yeah.
I think the plot gets thicker. Let's see.
Had no idea what real peppermint smelled like, then of course he wouldn't be able to manipulate them into believing they were smelling something they'd never experienced.
Not with the word
so that's important.
But
the reason,
if the sound really works and it really does invoke a smell of mint, then yes, that would work. That would actually work. So I don't think he quite gets that part.
I mention this is that it does not logically follow that because they were manipulated to believing they were smelling peppermint, therefore peppermint doesn't exist. It does not follow that something does not exist simply because you can stimulate somebody into believing they're experiencing it sometimes, at least a small portion of the audience.
So, I mean, that's correct, right? That's correct. Logically, it does not mean that God doesn't exist just because you can manipulate somebody into having a religious experience. But nor does it mean that God does exist because you had an experience.
Yeah, I don't think that most people use that as a argument for or against the existence of God. It's basically, well, my experience and the religious experience of others is really no different ontologically or whatever than your experience. It's all subjective and it all involves, a certain set of feelings. The question is, how is it your interpretation of it is the true one and not somebody else's? And that's the whole point, is when you appeal to an experience to indicate that, you've been touched by the Holy Spirit, how can you say that my experience is from God while your experience speed is from Satan or from no one at all?
KCA Randy here says, "Well, that was not the point of the demonstration. You're correct. It wasn't to disprove God. It was to show that people can have religious experiences without believing in God. You can have the same experience.
Yeah, they can be intentionally engineered by people."
Yep.
So here's an interesting conundrum for you. You were talking about emotions before. How would you explain someone like myself? The reason why I've got a zombie as my picture is because I was actually blown up 16 years ago when I was on deployment with the Navy, and I suffered some interesting damage to my brain in which I don't actually possess emotions anymore.
Oh, really? Still?
Yeah, I have literally no aspects of emotions.
Wow. So
that's on the outside, but you never know. because
Did you
it's a
have
deeper
damage?
thing.
Did you have damage to the right side of your brain?
No, it's actually the lower part of the brain near the brainstem.
So
Did
the
you get
brain,
too close to the radar or something?
so it was a limbic system, right?
No, a piece of shrapnel went up through my neck and into the lower part of my.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but the aspect of it is what actually is happening biologically is the receptors still pick up whatever is happening. The signals are still being sent to the brain stem, but because the glands that are actually producing the chemicals are either destroyed, disconnected, or in such a way as atrophied because of the damage, I don't actually get the chemical receptors within the brain to actually experience the emotions. How would you explain something like that for them?
Well, your soul is broken, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Oh, my soul was broken anyway. That's why I had to replace the boots.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Jockey ahead a little bit.
Now that I've suggested to Natalie that faith can be a positive thing, all the elements I need are in place for her conversion moment. Now, if I wanted her to continue to believe in God, which I don't, she would need to start looking for evidence in her life to support that belief. And this is vital for maintaining an identity as a believer. When we think something is true, we look for anything which will confirm it to us. We find patterns in randomness.
Exactly. But the interesting thing is, when we see something or we have something that's unexplained, we'll try to find evidence, first of all, for what it is. But then if you already think you know what it is, or if somebody else told you what it is and you trust them, then you're going to try to find evidence to support that claim, which is just confirmation bias, which is what happens to people when they have a born-again Jesus experience in church. They basically go with the thing that they, is right there in front of them, or that they want to believe, or they're already inclined to believe, and they're going to acquire this deep faith in Christianity. So that is a problem. But let's see what he says.
Okay, let's pause there. In another part of the show, this whole show is 47 minutes long, so I had to cut it down here. Otherwise, I felt this reaction video might be a little long. I've cut it down to its essence. But another part of the show, he did an experiment where he demonstrated that if someone believes something, they will often find patterns in randomness to support that belief.
Yep.
When in fact, maybe those patterns were just fabricated by their own mind. So this is what he's suggesting.
There's something I want to point out about that, about finding patterns. Like when you find patterns in the clouds, those patterns, there are really patterns in the cloud, but you've knitted them together in a certain way and then combined them with something that you believe you see. But that does not mean that the patterns aren't there. There's something about the clouds that trigger. Like if you see a face in the clouds, there is most certainly something about those clouds that resembles a face. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it.
Right.
You don't just make this shit up in your head, whole cloth. So I mean, and that's something that people keep missing when they talk about these random patterns. We are pattern detection machines, and we'll put together patterns out of anything, but we do have to have something to put them together out of. We don't just make them up.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the time. Sometimes we do. Depends on what you're smoking. But
for Natalie, that if in order for her to continue to believe in God, she would have to find some patterns in randomness to continue to support that belief. But I want to point out something subtle here, is that evidence for a belief being true is not simply just patterns and randomness. For example, the evidence for the existence of God goes far beyond just patterns and randomness, as those of you in philosophy might be aware of, the various arguments for the existence of God, from the origin of the universe, the.
But how does he know that he didn't go out looking for that evidence and
right
with confirmation bias?
Yeah. Just seeing patterns where there aren't any.
I mean, if you crunch up the cedar needles and you smell cedar and you do it every time, that is a pretty good reason to believe that what you're smelling is cedar.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to see him make that same case for God. Of course, he's an apologist, so he does all over the place. But
the design that we see in this world, historical evidence that perhaps God did appear to us in the 1st century AD in the form of Jesus of Nazareth.
Bullshit.
And so it goes on of the moral argument for the existence of God. So there are other things.
Okay, let's see where we go next. 1708. Oh, I guess we do have
outside the
something coming
constitute
up.
evidence. But I think he is an atheist. He stated that, but he seems to believe that the evidence for this belief in God is simply a collection of patterns of randomness that we've accumulated, and that's definitely not true. In fact,
he never said that, right? Did he say that? I don't think he said that in his entire video. At least I can't remember him saying that. So I think no.
I'll have to watch the video itself closer to come to that conclusion.
He doesn't claim that the belief in Christianity came about simply by people having this experience. You have to have a little bit more than that. You have to have people telling you about this dude who rose up out of the tomb and all that crap.
Right.
Yeah.
In real life, one of the great challenges is to see, is this really evidence, or is it just, did I just sort of put this together in my head as
exactly
sort of a random pattern?
Yes.
And that's always a challenge. It's what we do in science. We want to separate the accidental from the legit. So let's continue on here. I just want to point out that not all the evidence, not all the evidence is just patterns and randomness. In fact, I would put very little weight on patterns and randomness.
You've already seen me introduce the idea of a perfect father figure, elicit and combine feelings of awe and being cherished, and allow her to notice a grand plan in her life. I've also attached these feelings to the tapping of my finger so that I can bring them all back in an instant. I'm now going to...
Yeah, I don't know if, I guess he did do this to her, but it just all seems a little contrived. So I'm a little skeptical about him having done all this, without her. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's not to the point. So let's see, 1818. Where am I at? Let's go to Kurk. I think this is Kurk.
Okay, I just want to point out how he has set her up, and I'm not speaking out of school here. I'm sure that he expected us to pick this up.
That's what he
wanted
to do.
But he has suggested that something can be literally right in front of our face, and he physically gestured to an area directly just in front of her and a little up. And he also uses the term, and then one day we stand up and we're surprised. So he's using the power of suggestion here. He's put a lot of things together. He has set it up now so that if she stands up and when she stands up and she moves through this area that he's described just in front of her face, the religious experience that she has been, let's say, I don't know if I want to use the word hypnotized, but it looks a little bit like that to me. That'll be triggered at the moment she stands up and her face moves through that area where he described with his hand. So let's take a look.
Which is the point. So she goes through this thing where she stands up and has this amazing experience. And we'll skip that part. But she has this really intense experience when she stands up. So she may have been seriously hypnotized. I don't know. Not entirely sure.
But I want to focus on something that he says here almost a week later. He says the ability to have a religious experience is innately hardwired within it. Then he goes on to say, without any need for God to exist. And that does raise a philosophical problem.
Nope.
And the problem is this. Why would we have this hardwiring, this ability to experience God, if in fact there is no God that exists? We have...
Pause.
Yeah, definitely.
I would submit that it's not the quote unquote need for God, but the need for a cause or purpose outside ourselves, a need for being bonded to a community of trust, that requires things from me and provides benefit back. There's so many advantages to being hardwired for that. It was just kind of, to me, it just seems like in the distant past, it was just sort of co-opted by leaders who wanted to add that religious, God-centered dimension on it, just to enhance their power.
Right.
But all the things about providing a sense of purpose and community and culture and all sorts of things like that, those are the things that are of benefit.
Yep. Yeah, the whole thing about God seems an awful a lot like kings and leaders and fathers to me. I mean, what do they call God? Our Father?
Abba.
Hi, Ox. Hi, Ox. Hi, Kafai. Anyway, so saying that we're hardwired for these mystical or religious experiences is simply saying that we are hardwired to have strong emotional experiences of awe and wonder or closeness or whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with there being a God or us being wired to experience a father figure type. Well, we're wired to experience our parents, I think, through both genetics and upbringing. So
Right.
I don't know. But anyway, so he's got that kind of backwards. So that again, one of his points doesn't land at all.
The ability to smell, for example. And it makes sense to us because there are actually things to smell. We have an ability to feel with our fingertips, and that's hardwired within us because there are actually things out there to feel with our fingertips. If we, in fact, have hardwired.
He's doing by analogy bullshit.
Yeah, he's doing by analogy bullshit. So we'll skip to the next part. 2546. Just not buying this.
Times 1,000.
Yeah, let's just pause here. So what has happened here, and then I want to pick up two things you just said. Well, she could be a paid actor, maybe. I'm skeptical. To give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, he's approaching the topic with a grain of salt.
Skepticism, yeah.
Experience that Natalie had, at least number two, is that she was probably hypnotized to believe she was experiencing the presence of God. There's maybe certain powers of suggestion, hypnotic techniques they use to bring this about. And I think he's pretty much telling us that that's what he's done. He's manipulated her to believe.
Let's go on.
So let's take a look at this profound experience she had. She said, why couldn't I have had this all my life? I noticed, or you may have noticed too, when she was actually having the experience, she put her hands together like this, as if she was praying. I don't think she was praying. It might have just been an instinctive thing, but I thought I heard the word thank you. I don't know who she was thanking, but it seemed real and legit at the time. It was a very powerful. And then she talked about all the love she's felt from her friends and her family. And she says this was times 1,000. It was orders of magnitude greater than any kind of love she'd ever experienced before in her life. So what's going on here? Maybe it's just, I have seen at the hypnotist show I went to last university, I think it was some university I was at, there were people who reacted supposedly under hypnotic trance in quite an extreme way. And so maybe this is just an artifact of reacting in an extreme way. But there's something else that's behind the scenes here. And that is when he did the lemon or the peppermint test, there literally was no peppermint in the room that we're aware of. There literally was none, because it's a physical thing that could be removed from the premises. God is not a physical thing that can be removed from the premises. The presence of God could very well have been there as well. It occurred to me that sometimes you can mess with things that you don't even really fully understand and you don't know what you're getting into. And I would be a little nervous about what Darren Brown is doing here. He may be venturing into an area where he's quite confident there is no God, and therefore anything you experience is bogus or fake.
He fucked with God.
That confidence is ill-placed. There is an enormous amount of evidence that there is a God. So it may be
he's just really.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead and pause. Yeah, he's just really presupposing the existence of God. He just can't accept the fact that, okay, we're not thinking about God in this equation. We're thinking about generating a religious experience.
Yeah.
And,
So
he's almost threatening with boogeyman too. You know, you don't know what you're getting into.
Right.
Yeah. You may think that this stuff is being generated by you, but you just don't know. God's there too, and so he's not accepting the physical evidence.
He buckles down.
Who is this guy?
So
who is this guy?
Kurk Durston. He's got a YouTube channel called Kurk Durston. So he's an anti-evolution guy. So
He's not a scientist.
No, he is a scientist. He actually is a scientist. And I think I found really good papers by him. So he's made good contributions to science, as far as I can tell. He's not an unintelligent person at all. So,
But yeah, of course, what we've covered here today is not within his area of specialty at all.
right. Should be neuroscience, not genetics. I think he's a
I mean, a
geneticist.
scientist in this what do you call it? In this
What's that?
field. He's not a scientist in this field.
Yeah, right. Not in psychology, not in neuroscience, but
So then why do we care?
yeah. Well, I don't know.
Well, this is YouTube. You can talk about anything you want.
Why do we care? Okay,
What he may in fact have done is create a window.
here
And
we
for
go.
a few seconds, God actually stepped in and says, okay, thank you, Darren. I'm going to really give Natalie an experience of the kind of love that she had.
Okay, now why would God choose to step into Natalie's life when she knows that she's being manipulated and she's with another atheist? Why would God choose to do it that way? God being a little deceitful here?
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, that's pretty
Your
weak.
buddy here is just coming up with a scenario that's just kind of far flung and out there. And you're right. Why would God knowingly go into a situation where his quote unquote presence is being generated artificially? Now, what could conceivably happen is she enjoyed her experience so much, whether that maybe she wants to go and get involved with communities and groups that help generate those feelings.
Yes.
And
Buddhists.
nudists, okay.
No, the Buddhists.
Buddhists, okay. I thought you said nudists. Okay.
Where is your mind, Scott?
I don't know, man.
What the hell's wrong with you?
I've just been.
Or Kafai's mushrooms, you can do it there too. Okay, I think another part is coming up here.
But don't you feel that that's just going to ridiculous extremes?
Yeah.
To add gravity to your point of view?
Yeah, to suggest that God was just waiting around for a chance to enter Natalie's soul, and this hypnotist gave it to him.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. Yep.
Had no concept ever existed, and then promptly overwhelms her with an unconditional love that's 1,000 times more than anything she's ever experienced before. I don't know if that applies, but I had an experience almost identical to that, except I was alone one spring, on a warm spring day, just sitting enjoying the warm air. It only happened once in my life, and that was the particular time. I was sitting there, and suddenly I became aware of a presence that entered that alcove in the forest where I was just sitting. A presence just moved behind me. It was the presence of God. I knew it instantly.
Okay. It was the presence of God. I knew it instantly. How did he know that instantly?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, what came prior to that feeling? Oh, yeah, that was God. Oh, I know it. I recognize that guy. It's like, oh, shit. Anyway.
Because it's uncontrollable emotions. And so he thinks that something that's not in his control is something else making him feel that way.
Got a couple more.
Not subconscious.
Oh,
What do you
yeah,
think?
too many more. Is it everybody bored with this yet? Or I could go on to the next one. Let's see, 31, 39. Yeah. We'll just go through them.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
How do you feel when you think about God now compared to how you were earlier on when you came in?
Like a unconditional love that will always be there no matter what. I don't know. Oh, it's so conflicting.
Do you think it doesn't quite fit into your scientific?
Yeah.
Mine's-
Ever the scientist. Oh, God.
Okay. It's what she said here. And what she said, it was like an unconditional love that will always be there. Now, note that he never suggested that when he was setting her up for this situation. This is additional information that he has not supplied. And this might be one piece of evidence that, in fact, what she actually experienced was the real thing. And this is where she got that information from, was direct from God, direct from experiencing the love of God, the full magnitude of it. And that it's...
As we know, God is the only one capable of unconditional love, right?
Right.
Yeah. And my mama.
and so forth. And
Oh, let's see, where are we here? 30. Let's go to 34.
Me, that day after we'd sort of finished filming, you said this has to be something supernatural because it wasn't anything that felt you could explain.
Technically, yeah, textbook definition is something unexplained. Is maybe supernatural, but again, because I don't believe in a supernatural, I'm still searching to identify that source.
It must set up conflicts in your mind. So you're still sort of searching through that by the sound of it.
I'm still mulling over what happened nearly a week ago. Yeah.
Excellent. I feel.
Okay. Now what he's about to do is he's again lapsing into that same tone of voice and kind of power of suggestion here to try and undo what she experienced almost a week ago. So I just wanted you to be aware of that and compare how he's speaking to her in these next minute or so as compared to how he was speaking to her at the table in that church. He's lapsed back into that same situation. So at this point, he's trying to, I guess, manipulate her to believe that there is no supernatural that did not come from God.
I don't know if he's trying to manipulate her now or just, tell her what happened, what he did, right? And let her let her make her own choice, right? Let's see where else we got it.
Make sure that you don't leave this experience with a religious belief that I've sort of just given you. I think the emotions, I think everything you've taken from it is hugely positive. But it's important to me that you can separate the emotions that you felt and everything positive that you've taken from this from a religious belief. So let me explain to you what I did. I elicited feelings from you.
Okay, so that's fair of him to tell him that he manipulated her. And now she can make her own decision, right? So I don't see any problem with him doing that. Let's see where you devalue the experience. Let me see.
Now, does that devalue it?
It has added a kind of artificial element to it for me now.
Okay.
But again, I suppose inducing an emotional reaction to something, if it's to external influences, it's always artificial in a way.
She still wants to hang.
Okay, so when somebody tells you that when you fall in love, like when you have a really heavy crush on somebody, there's a particular chemical that's very much like methamphetamine that's basically present in your brain in high doses when you have a crush on another person. And when somebody tells you that, does it devalue it? Does that mean that you still didn't feel it, even though they told you, oh, it's chemistry, right?
Because or that it comes from our need to reproduce?
Well, I don't know if it has, if we understand our need to reproduce, but we are physical creatures, and hormones and chemicals and emotion run us, except for Beamsy. I'm so sad for you, Beamsy. But anyway. But I mean, it doesn't devalue it, okay? Just because I know that it's a chemical reaction that allows me to smell roses doesn't mean that I don't really enjoy smelling roses, right? I mean, when somebody explains that you're a physical creature, how does that devalue it? Anyone?
Really, when you talk about being a physical creature and all the amazing things that go on in your body, just to smell a rose or whatever, it's hard to think of that as devaluing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it as devaluing. Okay, let's see, where are we at? We're at 3658.
Unless you have a preposition of thinking that you're more than this physical world.
Yeah. If you had some preconception about a soul or a spirit mind or whatever, then if somebody explained that it's, it is chemistry at, ultimately in physics, then you would be, oh God, that, you took the air out of my balloon. Ooh, somebody wants something.
Little guy got surprised by a big girl.
As a completely artificial situation that she was in, or an experience that was completely fake. She wants to hold on to this. And that is why.
Fake. There was nothing fake about the experience she had. She experienced something. Yeah. And there's nothing fake about it. It's just.
She's saying it in the way she does.
But, if it's from listening to amazing.
Let's see. I think we got 2 bookmarks left and then we're done.
Okay. So that concludes the abbreviated form of that video that I'm commenting on here. And I guess if I were to, the main takeaway is this, is that just as in the peppermint, inducing people to believe they're smelling peppermint when in fact there was no peppermint in the room. It does not logically follow that therefore there is no peppermint that exists. It does not logically follow that all the.
I think he's gotten off the subject.
Yeah, same thing. Well, he's going back to his analogy.
It is possible that he is messing with things that he is just underqualified to, that he is not very naive about. That is the existence of God, experiencing God. He may have inadvertently created a situation where she did experience the love of God, but it wasn't that God was manipulated to participate in this. I find in my own experience, God is often turns the tables on our best plans.
Okay.
That's just
his subconscious is God.
Yeah, we're done with that. So basically, he said the guy knew exactly what he was doing, and the guy had some understanding that people do have these experiences, and people have them no matter what religion you adhere to, or if you adhere to no religion at all. Like I've talked about it over and over again. It happened to me when I was 15 years old. I was an atheist prior, during, and after. And it had nothing to do with a religious belief at all. And it's just something that happened to me, and it was very profound. And I felt unconditional love, peace. Everything's wonderful with the world. You know, the whole thing just happened to me for 3 days. And I had no religion attached to that at all. And we are all capable of those feelings. So anyway, enough of him.
Yeah, I had very similar experiences, like when I quote unquote got saved as a 14-year-old. And then when I had lost my faith and I was just kind of digging around, exploring other pathways, I was into Taoism for a little while, but at the same time was trying to practice different meditative techniques and stuff. And I had a very similar experience. You know, it was an outburst of laughter and joy, as well as a sense of transcendence. It didn't last for days, but it was very real and profound as a, just as a agnostic atheist at the time. So these things can be made possible and made manifest, I think, at any point of view in your life.
Yeah, there's the important thing to understand here is that, we have these senses, right? We have these senses that basically gather together through time, and we come up with something called a sensation. Okay. So it goes from a raw sense, which happens momentarily, and it goes to an accumulation. That's a sensation. And then that goes into another part of your brain where you basically have all of this knowledge, where you've learned things, and you have language. So we have language and we have knowledge, and we put these things together and we make sense of our world, And so Christians have this belief that it's God pouring this particular emotional sensation into them, and it's really hard to change that belief in somebody. I mean, if I believe that I'm smelling strawberries when I'm smelling strawberries, it's goddamn hard to convince me I'm not, right?
I love the smell of strawberry.
I love the smell of strawberries. But I mean, and there's this whole huge, emotional section of our brain where we feel anger and fear and warmth and, radiance, awe, all of these things, this whole emotional feeling system. And the way that is built. Now you've got your limbic region, which is, basically in your brainstem, right? So you've got these things that generate raw emotions that are pretty much a bunch of different neurotransmitters, like a cocktail of neurotransmitters. And it goes up into this cortical area, which is where all of this knowledge and language exists, right? And then what we do is we say, oh my God, that's a fucking bear. And then we feed back into the limbic system, And the limbic system then feeds back into the cortex, and you build something called a feeling. Now, Antonio Damasio is a neuroscience scientist, and he makes the distinction between an emotion, which would be the raw juice squirters, that basically come from down here, and the feeling, which is the thing that our cortex generates by combining with language and knowledge, that sort of thing. But when you feel these, juice squirters shooting things at you, that's fucking real. There's nothing unreal about that. And then when you combine it, and you get this feedback loop, you're an organism going through an experience. And when you have a religious experience, it's a really big thing. And it feels very powerful, but it's fully explained with neuroscience. So anyway.
Neuroscience.
Speed.
Hey.
Do you mind if I discuss a question I have with Beamsy?
No, go ahead. We're willing to change the topic entirely.
Okay. Is that sarcasm or no?
No, it's not. No.
Okay. I have trouble sometimes telling sarcasm from non-sarcasm. So.
Well, with me, it's not possible because they sound exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I find that to be true. Nobody can tell if I'm being sarcastic or not.
Yep.
So, Beamsy, you said you were misreading my question. Did you want me to read it? Uh-oh. Echo.
No, it was on my end.
Echo.
I'm going to leave and come back.
Yeah, I think Speed needs to go out and come in.
Okay,
where are you saying?
The aspect of the cosmic time dilation is the actual redshift. It's how they read it.
Okay. So they're kind of like...
So I was explaining the wrong end of it. Sorry.
So are you saying they're kind of like the sort of the same phenomenon?
Kind of.
Okay. But they're both caused by the expansion of space, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's where I was kind of getting confused. And the reason I bring this up, and to kind of bring it back to the Jason Lyle's model that we were talking about, is because on one of, Staying for Truth, of course, right?
Oh, you mean spreading tales and lies?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That one. Yeah.
Standing in poop.
Yeah. So I guess in his interview, what I'm interested in is in his interview with Jason Lyle, SFT kind of brought up this question by one of the viewers that if Lyle is saying that it can be assumed that light travels instantaneously toward Earth in that direction, then how is the redshift distance relation that we see in Hubble's law? Essentially was their question. And the reason I bring up the time dilation, or the cosmic time dilation, and this question is because Lyle responded basically in kind of two ways: his standard convention versus model way, and the second was he brought up this general relativistic time dilation, which I'm pretty sure he means this cosmological time dilation, and he said that would explain the redshift even if light were coming instantaneously to Earth, which still doesn't make sense to me. So I just want to bring that up on your end to hear your thoughts.
Sorry, I'm still getting over whatever bug I had. There are two different types of time dilations. You've got special relativity time dilation, which is kinetic. It's the relative velocity between two objects, or gravitational potential. That is the gravitational time dilation, which is what you're referring to.
Okay.
What the cosmological time dilation is due to a combination of both, because as the universe is expanding at faster than the speed of light, it takes longer for each of the photon of light to actually reach the observation point. So that's why,
that's why the event appears to take longer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so, sorry. At 1 second, it's suddenly at 1 light year, then the next second it's 2 light years, and the next second it's 3 light years. So something that would have taken 3 seconds appears to have taken 5 seconds.
Okay.
It's not that simple, but that's the easiest way I can explain it.
Yeah, the simplest way that I can understand it, at least, yeah.
But the actual shifting of it from the 1 second to 2 second to 3 second is actually what causes the redshift, because the light is basically stretched between the times.
Okay, and how exactly in a simple way, how does the time dilation explain, or the stretching out the time between the photons? How does that does it have to do with like the frequency of the light?
Yes, it's more to do with the frequency. It's
Okay.
nothing to do with the time.
Okay. So then in Lyle's model, where light traveling here instantaneously, would that account for the redshift, or would it still be
if it was instantaneously, there would be no redshift.
Right. Yeah, because if the light were coming here instantaneously, as like I know he says it's a convention, for example, and yet he's just modeling that way. But if it were to actually solve the distant starlight problem, it would actually have to be instantaneous. So if it were arriving here at infinite speed, then as I understand it, there would be no redshift, and there wouldn't be this longer duration of distant events either, correct?
Yes. If you make light travel instantaneously, there's not the issue of it needing to be stretched out over time. That's where the perception of the dilation comes in, because it needs to travel from point A to point B, and as point A and point B expand, it just takes longer for the light to arrive there.
Right. Okay. So then why do you think he brought up the whole time dilation in the first place? Do you have any guesses? Because if that doesn't really solve the problem, if they're both kind of one and the same.
That pretty much answers your question. Basically.
Oh, okay.
Whilst you were trying to actually make a point, it was basically, "Hey, look, squirrel!"
Okay. So I'm guessing you're watching you've watched the same video I'm referencing.
No, I was making a reference of Up. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about.
Oh, no, I mean the Jason Lysle interview. Have you actually watched it, or?
I'm going through Donny Dumbas's all of his
here. Speed,
debates.
Would you mind if we showed the clip I'm referencing, maybe just in case for context?
We can go ahead and do that if I can find it.
Okay. Give me a sec.
SFT has those. Look at how these geologists are dressed: Indiana, Joe Hubbard, and John McKay.
If you ever really meet geologists and paleontologists, they don't really dress like that.
Right. Only for these shows. It's pretty amazing.
I do appreciate your help with this question, Beamsy. That's been bugging me for a little bit.
Did you?
But as soon as you actually make light instantaneous, then you have the infinite light problem, in which basically the entire sky should be iridescent if all light was traveling to us instantaneously.
Right.
Did you give me a link?
Hold on, I'm looking it up. I know the timestamp roughly. So.
Do you know where it is? Like how long ago?
It was I guess just type in "Standing for Truth's" interview with Jason Lysle, maybe. It should be it's one video, I think. He didn't really do that many of them.
Oh shit! What did I do? Okay, so the ultimate takedown. God, what is wrong with Jason Lysle? is wrong with YouTube? Channel has no matches for Jason Lysle. Are you kidding me? Okay, I'll find it.
Hold on. All right, you look for that. I'm gonna look for. Oh, okay. Hold on. Maybe did I find? Okay, I think I found it. All right, hold on. Let me click it. The link.
Are you talking about the Big Bang Cosmology is a Big Failure by Jason Lysle?
No, that's it's a different video. Yeah, I found it. Okay, hold on. Let me get to the time.
Oh, there we go. The Distance Starlight with Jason Lysle.
Yes, Germania, I did get cancer from your streams, and syphilis, and brain damage.
I only got gonorrhea. Where's mine?
You didn't get a sexually transmitted disease from streams?
Yeah, I got gonorrhea.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Okay, so try that link speed. See if it gets you to the particular time.
Okay.
The one I posted.
Yep.
Should be about the 1 hour 6 minute mark, roughly.
Okay. So let me go see if I
So
can.
would you mind listening to this real quick, and then I guess we can reiterate the question, Beamsy? Because this is the clip I was talking about with the time dilation and redshift.
Okay, and after I play this, let me know if I'm echoing again.
Okay.
Speed of light, and the answer is amazingly no, it doesn't, because the expansion.
Maybe go back a few seconds, just so he actually talks about the question. Yeah,
I can see how you think that. That's a very. I commend you for asking that question. That's a very insightful question, because if we say, well, the reason that the redshifts happen is because the universe has been stretched while the light's traveling. Doesn't that require a finite speed of light? And the answer is amazingly no, it doesn't, because the expansion. When you talk about the one-way speed of light,
he's speaking on his ass
versus being the same in all directions. What you're really doing is you're using two different coordinate systems, and so the results of any experiment have to be the same in terms of what you actually get. And so if light is redshifted in one system, it has to be redshifted in the other system. The cause might be different, but the degree of redshift will be exactly the same. And there's not an easy way to explain this without going into general relativity, but there is a general relativistic time dilation that occurs for galaxies that are far away under expansion, and that accounts for the redshift, and it will match the redshift that you would get from expansion of the universe under the Einstein synchrony convention. So
he never answered the question.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like he's conflating the ideas here, but what do you think?
He's using some correct information, but he's not actually presenting any answer to the question. The answer to the question is the speed of light is constant.
Great response. So the next.
Oh.
Yeah. The aspect is, what he should have said is the speed of light is constant, and that's why we can experience the redshift, because as the light is traveling, whilst the universe is expanding, it dilates the light. If the universe was not expanding, or the speed of light was not constant, then it would be shifted in a different way.
Right. And it wouldn't vary depending on what distance we're observing, obviously.
Yeah. Yes.
Because that goes against his whole argument that there is no, that the distance doesn't matter because it gets here at the same time.
The longer it travels, the more it's dilated. It's that simple.
Right, yeah. So there has to be some distance and therefore time there for it to travel.
And we know what the chemical makeup of these stars like.
Yep.
So that's how we can know the difference in the shift for the distance.
Yep, yeah, that's how we tell the different redshifts based on the spectral lines.
Yep.
So I guess, does that kind of put it into context where I was talking about the time dilation and how he brought that up, and it doesn't seem like he was really addressing it, because if what you're saying is the cosmic time dilation and redshift are both related, then kind of both
They're
would be
basically the same
affected.
thing.
So yeah, so it doesn't solve the problem, is what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, the time dilation is the perception of the redshift as the universe is expanding, or not necessarily the redshift, the actual perception of what we're actually viewing.
Right.
They're the
Or if
same
it's like-
thing.
Okay.
If it's like something moving around another object, we could see if it's coming closer or farther away.
That's the
Yeah.
Doppler effect.
Yeah, that's a different type of redshift.
Saying it causes the same kind of effect in the rainbow.
Okay. Well, thanks for your help, Beamsy. I kind of, like I said, I want to ask that because I was confused which one causes the other, if at all, if they're the same phenomenon, kind of
Neither
resolve
causes
that
the other.
conundrum. Yeah.
Neither are caused by the other. They're basically the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
One
that
is
makes
the
sense.
perception of what we're watching, and
Okay.
one is just the view of the light spectrum from exactly the same thing.
And they're both caused by expansion.
Yes.
Okay.
What is his?
All right, that
what
makes
is
sense.
his? What is his point? That the speed of light is variable between one direction and the other. I
He
mean,
wants to present the fact being that the possibility that the speed of light can be variable, so therefore the universe is young.
okay, but wouldn't it have to be like a lot faster than the speed of light in order to make a young universe?
What his argument basically is he's taking this convention that is consistent with special relativity, that you can model the light coming here as being infinite and the light going away as being half of c, the speed, the standard speed of light. And he's saying that since that's a convention, you can assume that the convention is reality in that sense. But of course, that's not necessarily a valid assumption, because as we just went over, if you make that assumption that the reality changes to fit the convention, then it would conflict with these observations like the ones me and Beamsy were just talking about.
Right. And that would screw up causation, you know?
Yeah, probably a little bit.
I don't know.
In the microwave background, it is actually when it first happened, it was all gamma rays, and now it's in the spectrum
How would
of
that explain the same
microwave.
beam?
Yeah.
That'd be weird. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. So thanks, Beamsy. That helps.
Alrighty. Well, guys, should we shoot her in the head today?
Sure.
I think we could. My voice is lost. Anyway, let's see. So I post links to both Jason Lysle videos that you guys put up, and the little thing on killer kidney cancers. And anyway, I guess that stuff about the kidney evolution really surprised me. As kidney embryology, the development of kidneys, and I think it's something I'm going to look a lot further into. Thought it was pretty cool, but it sure as hell seems like ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny a little bit. But of course, we don't want to go crazy with that idea. But there is something there. It's interesting. We have some of the same structures that build those kidney functions that fish do. And we still operate on them, and that's one of the ways that we form our urinary system, and reproductive system. I thought it was all very, very interesting, but I'm kind of obsessed with kidneys. My bad. Anyway, okay, guys, we're going to shoot her in the head for the day.
Okay.
So, let's see if I can figure out how to do
Bye,
that.
everyone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stay curious.
Goodbye, cruel world.
And I'm going to go back to annoying SFT. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, because he's doing a live show right now. So
Yes.
cool. Okay, thanks, guys, for showing up. Thank you all, and thank you all of you all in chat. I do read the chats as much as I can, but I'm kind of a one-track person. I apologize. Okay, we're out of here.